Yeah.
Great. And then Will?
Hi, Meredith. Will Quantz. I've been on Mercer Island since 2018, so I think I'm the newest resident for 4 years. Also very new to this board. This is only my second meeting, and I was just my term was just reaffirmed in the last city council meeting. I'm an environmental consultant with Brown and Caldwell. Focuses on the water and wastewater industry.
Great.
And then,
nice to meet you all.
And then Council Member Andrel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Meredith, welcome, and Will Quantz, congratulations on being reappointed. I'm Lisa Anderl. I'm serving the first full term, but second term because I was appointed to a partial term initially on the City Council, and I've been the Utility Board liaison pretty much the entire time. I was 25 years with CenturyLink as an in-house regulatory attorney, so this is kind of in my wheelhouse. Tim O'Connell and I joke that we may be the last two people left in the state who know how to do a rate case, but you know, it's I like this. This is one of the core functions of the city, and so I think it's great that people are participating in it, and so happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a couple of staff, and I know they're going to be making presentations, so we'll let them introduce themselves at the appropriate time. Again, welcome, Meredith. Look forward to it. With that out of the way, we have special business. We elect the chair and vice chair of the utility board for 1-year terms. And I was reelected to this a year ago. So it is time to open the matter up for nominations for, we typically start with chair and then go to vice chair. The position, as Jason mentioned, the position of vice chair is vacant right now because Brian Thomas is no longer on the board. Jason, remind us, why did Brian leave? If you're still with us.
There you go. He his term was maxed out. So yep. So he was at his term limit with Meredith and someone new who didn't have. So technically, Mr. Thomas served what the code refers to as 2 full terms, even though he worked 6 years. It's considered as 2 full terms. So he termed out. So Meredith is our new member of the utility board, and so it's time to do the chair and the vice chair.
Great. Well, I'll take nominations to serve as chair. As I said, I've done this for several years. I would be happy to continue if people want. I would be equally happy if someone else wants to take a turn. So with that, anyone want to make a nomination for chair? Steve?
Yeah, I would definitely nominate you, Tim. I think you've been doing a great job. So.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Is there a second to that?
I second. Doing a great job, Tim.
I hear it. Nominated by Steve Milton, seconded by Will Pokorny. I know my Robert's Rules of Order, so I have to ask, are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, I've called for nominations 3 times. I'm declaring nominations closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
For the minutes, it was unanimous. I would vote for myself, but it's tacky. Nomination for vice chair.
I would be happy to serve.
I was
William, if
Steve.
like
I was going to go ahead and nominate you, so I would nominate Steve Milton.
Steve, I think you make a great vice chair.
So I hear it second by Will
Second,
Pokorny.
yeah.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I'll declare nominations closed. All in favor of Steve Milton for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Again, for the minutes, unanimous.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard to you. Steve and I are the longest serving members of the board. We started at the same time, and it has been, I think, is it 10 years now?
Yeah, it's definitely at least near
I think
9.
that-
Yeah, but it's in that range, right?
Yeah, 9 or
Yeah,
10, you know.
We would have been term limited if more
The-
people had been volunteering at the right time. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think the legal phrase is the memory of man runneth not to a time when you and I have not been on the board. So. All right, with that, having conducted the special business as a formality, I'm required to ask if there are any public appearances. Is there, Jason, I think you're serving as host. Are there any participants who are not showing up on our screen?
No public
No?
appearances. this
Okay, let
evening.
the record reflect. Let the record reflect no public appearances. Regular business. Approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was April 12. I hope everybody had a chance to look at those. I'd accept a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah, so moved.
Vice Chair Milton moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Pokorny. Anybody else? Comment? Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Again, unanimous. I like that. The sustainability work plan update. And I think, who wants to kick us off, Jason?
I'll kick us off for just a
You,
quick
or
second,
go straight to Ross?
and then I'll go to Ross in just a second. So give me 30 seconds just to introduce the topic. Ross Freeman, our sustainability coordinator, is here with these this evening to talk about the sustainability work plan update. Full disclosure, the original intent was to this evening was to talk about the climate action plan that's just kicking off. But we've had a slowdown in that process a bit to allow the sustainability committee some more additional time to work through the draft strategies and goals before we bring it to the boards and commissions. So we're postponing that roadshow for the time being. But nevertheless, Ross is here this evening to talk about other elements of the sustainability work plan, and he'll probably touch on the cap just a bit as well. So Ross, over to you.
Great.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so we will be returning with a much more robust feedback session with different boards and commissions regarding the climate action plan several months from now, I believe. But at this time, yeah, we need to digest a large amount of content, excuse me, that's churning through the sustainability committee of the council. So in order to give them time to distill things down into a slightly smaller subset, we're going to pause on the sort of rollout of the draft goals and actions. With that said, I would let me just share my screen here, and I'll give a real quick overview of where we are in the climate action planning process without diving down into details too much, just so you have a sense of what's been going on. So just a moment here, and we'll go ahead and get that screen. Okay, so this is just a slide. You should be seeing a PowerPoint slide. Hopefully that looks okay.
Yes.
Yep. So this is a slide I used at a council presentation just a month ago, and it serves the purpose well enough here for this meeting. And just to kind of look at what has happened so far and what's remaining in this, what is in essence about a 15-month process. So starting last year, so December of 2021 was the public kickoff meeting that I hosted before we had a consultant on board. And that was really to introduce the topic to the public. We had a fantastic turnout of about 65 people. This is online. And then we had a parallel survey that ran for several months, asking some of the same questions that were in the public meeting. We got another, I think about 50 responses to that. So that's our early sort of non-statistical data set for where people are on these issues and what they're thinking about, what their priorities are, and what matters to them about the city's response. So that's how things began. And then in early this year, we issued an RFP and retained Cascadia Consulting to be our consulting support group on the climate action plan. And we had 6 applicants. They were head and shoulders, I'd say, just slightly above the top contenders. And they have deep experience in climate action plans all over the West Coast and really have done several dozen in the last few years, including almost all of our neighboring cities around Lake Washington have used them. So we're lucky to have them, and they bring a lot of capacity. One of the first things that they did was to, in April, really review the wide range of other city plans and policies that are on the books. So this is things from, say, our stormwater management plan, or our recently passed parks, recreation, and open space plan, some of the policies in the city code, comprehensive plan. And these were all examined to look at how they mention greenhouse gas related issues, what they've already stipulated, what kind of commitments the city may have already made. So it's important to kind of get that grounding in where the city has already sort of been involved in this topic. Also in April and May, Cascadia assembled the draft version of our public engagement plan and for this process. And that is the document that helps us map out how we're going to solicit input from the public, and how we're going to engage people to contribute, how we'll run surveys, those kinds of topics. Now, the second half of this slide, again, this was from about 6 weeks ago. So now, the word now on the slide actually was current about 6 weeks ago. Since that time, we have assembled, I gathered a huge amount of delayed energy consumption and emissions related information over the last 4 years, handed that over to Cascadia so they could analyze that and work on updating our greenhouse gas inventory. I track emissions and consumption and many other performance indicators, but on an annual basis, but I had not converted them into a comprehensive carbon footprint, really for lack of time and resources for several years. So they caught us up on the last 4 or 5 years of that analysis. And I've seen the draft version, and we've shared that draft version with the sustainability committee. In addition, what Cascadia does and some of the other practitioners in this space is use that information and use the city's stated greenhouse gas commitments that have been made under agreements with King County as part of our climate collaboration with the county itself. Project out, given our current emissions, given our footprint, where would we be over the next 50 years if we didn't do anything? And that's called the business as usual scenario. And that anchors the top of a graphic artifact that's called a wedge analysis. And that wedge essentially has pieces of the pie that are accounted for by different federal, state, local policies. So if no action happened based on our current emissions trajectory, we could see where we would be. And then based on what we know about new federal legislation coming on board, becoming active, a lot of things have happened at the state level regarding climate over the last couple sessions in Olympia that are now going to become active. Looking at all those measures, we know that will help reduce a lot of the carbon from various activities, but that still leaves a small chunk, a small wedge, a segment of the wedge at the bottom for local action. And that's the piece where we will be focusing our climate action plan work. So that has been produced, and actually just a few days from now at the Sustainability Committee meeting on Thursday, we'll be going through a live demonstration of that wedge where we can toggle different settings and look at, well, if we prefer to go after tightening green building standards and not do as much on vehicles, where does that put us on our trajectory? So it's a pretty powerful tool. It's a fairly sophisticated spreadsheet grounded in a bunch of real emissions data and real conversion factors based on best practices for the region. So that is a rapid tour of the last 3 or 6 months, I should say. And as I mentioned at the beginning, right now we have a draft set of goals, strategies, and actions. We have about 50 or 60 of those that we are reviewing with the Sustainability Committee. And these have been assembled, excuse me, from really best practices in the region. King County itself has a climate action toolkit that's a very useful document showing what other cities have been up to and what's recommended. We've looked at other cities' climate action plans. Many of them are recently passed. We've looked at sort of best practices under Cascadia's judgment from the other climate work they've been involved in. And then also discussions with subject matter experts to come up with that list of 50 to 60 goals. So that's where things stand right now. And I'll pause there if you have questions about the climate action plan. That's a real quick overview of sort of what the process looks like. Yeah,
Ross, thank you very much for that presentation. It's always very useful to know what's going on, and thank you for keeping us informed in that regard. You know, this group, of course, focuses on the operation of the city's utilities, and particularly because I know, you know, we look at our agenda for the rest of the year. Next meeting, we start talking about construction, and after that, we really get into rates. Do you have any indication of near term, medium term, long term, what some of the climate action items will impact the cost of operating our utilities?
I don't know. I don't have cost information at this time. That is typically something that gets added into the analysis once we've distilled down a slightly smaller list. It's fairly labor intensive to go deep on the cost and the return on investment analysis when you have 60 items. Sure. So we are, our intention is to try to distill that down and then get a sort of ballpark figure. Now, of course, there's different ways to look at costs. So we also have to look at that. Are we just talking about initial upfront cost? Are we talking about, you know, the long-term impact on city budget? We want to make sure we account for staff time to launch a program. And then are we looking at net value or a sort of 20-year horizon? So there's different decisions that will need to get made as we look at that cost component. But it will be one of the factors in at the end of this current phase. Cascadia typically does what they call a multi-criteria analysis. And that is a tool that is designed to help us come up with our priorities. Now, we can decide what the criteria are. One of them would be cost. There'd be staff time. There'd be community support. There'd be sort of feasibility given, let's say, the current political environment. What, you know, do we need something new in the code? All those kinds of considerations can be in that the multi-criteria analysis, and that will help us. Ultimately, the goal is to distill down into, okay, what are the early actions that we want to roll out and start right out of the gate when the plan goes live early next year. You know, ideally there would be, let's say, 3 to 5 actions that would be attempted in that biennium. And of course that comes with funding and staff time and other considerations, but we hope to get to that point where we can say these are the ones that we want to start out right away.
I definitely approve of the idea that cost has some impact on that calculation, so that's a good thing. Other members of the board, questions for Ross about the climate action plan? I'm not seeing any. Ross, thank you. That's a great update, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you more.
I actually have, I do have a couple of other items I can touch on.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and just share my screen here for a second. Knowing that this would be a fairly short presentation on the climate plan, I've also just assembled a few real quick updates on a few other major items that are also underway this year on the sustainability front, just to give you a real quick overview on that. So maybe another 5 or 7 minutes. I'll just share my screen here. Oops, let's see. Okay, can you see the my 4-item agenda there?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, so nothing fancy here, but just an overview of what I wanted to touch on. So we've given a quick update on the climate action plan. The other major campaign that's underway this year, and actually we launched it on Earth Day, is the Mercer Island Climate Challenge. Some of you might have heard about it. Essentially, this is we're partnering with a number of other East Side cities to essentially give those residents in all of our communities who want to get engaged in their own personal carbon footprint reduction, give them the way to get started now. We were hearing a lot from our community members that they don't want to wait 12, 14 months for the climate action plan to be done. What things can they start tackling now? And so it was good timing because the Climate Challenge is based on an online software platform that we're sharing with Redmond, Issaquah, and Bellevue. And Redmond's actually been running this for about 8 months or so. So they're a little ways ahead of us. And what it allows people to do is go ahead and customize it for the amount of information they want to share. They can put a lot of consumption information about their personal habits, travel, energy use, how their home is heated. And the more information they put in, the more accurate it will be. And then it uses some built-in conversion factors that are sort of tailored for our part of the country, and tells people simple things they could do that are low cost. And then it ranges all the way up to the more difficult things that have a bigger upfront cost. And these are things they could do in their own lives to reduce their own carbon footprint. So we have about 50 homes have signed up already. And one of the big compelling pieces of this software is it essentially turns it into a challenge. You can start a team, you can get your neighbors together and challenge another group of neighbors. Your church group can compete with other church groups. So it has this game-like aspect that gives people a sort of competitive edge. And that's how we can sort of give people an opportunity to engage in their own climate action plan work before the climate action plan itself is complete. So that's a pretty exciting initiative. And as I said, it's only been going a few months. We have 50 homes. We're hoping for about 250 by year's end. And then finally, the interesting additional component of that is it gives an estimation of the carbon dioxide equivalent emissions that are avoided by these different actions. So it attaches some numbers for people to see what their actions do and how their whole community is doing and what that looks like. I'll go ahead real quick and just show the landing page here. We have a page on our website that gives a little more information about it, and then from there you can go directly to the registration. So this
And
is
if anyone's
what,
interested, I pasted the link into the chat channel as well.
Thank you. Perfect. So this is what that landing page looks like, and gives a little bit more information about how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and then when you click through from that, you go to the shared East Side campaign where we have our own portal. Yeah, it's a really I think really neat opportunity for folks to, they can do something easy, or they can take the more difficult options and sort of find their path. So that is the second major item I'm working on, and then I'll just go ahead and share up here. The other really big project that I'm working on right now is a heat pump installation pilot program. And what that is, again, I'm partnering with my fellow East Side cities. We've been doing a lot of background research on this and really making sure we've assessed the true feasibility and the current environment for supply chain issues, access to contractors and distributors. And the concept is there's a lot of interest in heat pumps. People learned about them last summer during the heat wave and discovered that some of their neighbors had the ability to essentially run your heat pump in reverse and have home cooling. And that was a miracle for those that had it. And it can be done, these run at a much lower cost than your conventional air conditioning system. And they're running on electricity, which is what we prefer because we're trying to decarbonize our grid and have people move off of natural gas for their energy supply. So our ideal target user is maybe somebody who needs to upgrade a furnace. Their gas furnace is out of date, and then at the same time they're very interested in getting air conditioning as part of their new equation for their home. And so one centralized air pump or heat pump system could serve both of those needs and attach to their existing ductwork if they so choose. So that installation program, it's a pilot that would run a bit like the Solarize campaigns that I've run before. And this is essentially, we're helping find some pre-selected installers or distributors. We're giving people educational workshops to ask all of those and answer a lot of those common questions that come up over and over again, give people a sort of level playing field to start on. Also, because it's a group program, we can sometimes arrange a small discount from the vendors through the sort of power of the bulk purchase. And then if people are interested in proceeding, then they contact an installer and get a free site visit assessment. That's how the Solarize programs worked. Now, heat pumps are a little more complicated technology. They're really have to be very specific to an individual home. There's much more variability than there is for solar panels, but it's a similar idea as to how that would work. And we're just in the final phases now of our research and launching this program with the educational workshops, which is when you'll start to see more evidence of it. And the idea is that we'd have two parallel tracks. One of them is essentially the market rate track. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had an equity component where each of the cities is going to subsidize a handful of low-income, qualifying low-income household installations, so that people that really need relief from the energy burden of their billing could potentially qualify for almost a cost-free installation. So we have a lot of moving parts there to orchestrate, but we're close to formally launching that. And then finally, some of you may be aware that, let's see, I guess it was in February of this year, I ran a pilot effort where we did sort of a demonstration and a feasibility assessment of doorstep recycling. So this is where a vendor, in this case, it's Ridwell, that some of you may already have your own accounts with. And they're really the only provider in this space that does customized doorstep collection. So we worked with them to tailor a program where they would gather styrofoam. So they collect items that can't be recycled in the conventional curbside setting with our provider, with Recology. So they go after those other items that people have a lot of, but would have to take somewhere special or would just have to throw away. So we thought styrofoam was a good place to start. And we really just did it as a pretty light touch. We didn't do a huge amount of promo, but we got 450 homes involved. And that was done for about $7,500. And so Jason and I have been talking about expanding that out to other collectibles, other recyclables, and trying to pick off those items that aren't accepted anymore at our annual drive-up recycling events. And gradually trying to sort of pivot over to this model where Ridwell is doing the logistics, and on the day of, they have small vans that go out to different neighborhoods, bring the items back to a central location, and then they fill large box trucks with the recyclables, and those go to the correct recycling venue. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity to reinvent how some of those more difficult items would be handled. And that's so that's an overview of some of the other major initiatives that are underway. And you'll be seeing a lot more of those as the year goes on. I'm happy to take questions on any of those too.
Great, thank you, Ross. Any questions? Meredith. And you're muted, Meredith.
Here, I thought I was doing so well. I was just going to compliment the city on the Ridwell program. It was something that we participated in, and I thought it was just terrific to have the ability to get rid of all this styrofoam in an easy way. And I'm very glad to see that there was that much participation in it.
Great, that's thank you for that. It's great to hear the eyewitness accounts too. We really had great feedback from the public. The vendor thought it went super well. Yeah, there was no, it was all positive commentary, which is pretty nice for a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and they also pick up now plastic film, which we managed to fill a bag of up every time they're ready to come around. So
yes, we've talked about what is the next item that would make sense. I mean, I know that a lot of folks get rid of their shipping envelopes, the Amazon padded mailers, and there's other things that they believe are the sort of top 5 items. So we'll be working on that, and
great.
Might try to roll another one out in this same year, but if not, then there'll be some in 2023.
Okay. Any other questions for Ross?
You're right, Ross. Quick question on the heat pumps. I think that's great. That's really cool. Did you say the pricing is almost net zero for some of the customers? Like no cost to them? Did I hear that right?
That for a handful of subsidized installations for income qualified individuals. Yeah,
that's great.
So we don't have the capacity to do that for everybody. But we are very aware that heat pumps do have a notable upfront installation cost. The operation of them, once you've had it for 10 years or so, you've probably paid it off, and then you've paid it off 10 to 15. And energy consumption, of course, much more efficient, but that upfront cost is significant. Anytime you're going beyond just a one room ductless installation for a studio. So we wanted to try to see if we could also work with some of our social services providers in the region that already do energy billing assistance, and they already know who are the qualified households that are at the 50 to 80% area median income, and see if we could approach those individuals and say, hey, here's a proposal. So that's kind of the working concept.
Awesome, that's great.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So unless there's any other questions, not seeing any. Ross, thank you very much. We appreciate the update. It is useful information, and of course we know the city's utilities are big contributors to all of this in both senses of the word. So we'll look forward to further impact.
Great. Well, you're welcome for that, and happy to answer any of the questions later. And with that, I'll wrap up.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Jason, you might want to get back on camera and unmute, because I think you'll be involved in the next set of discussions. Next item of business is our work plan. And I notice the next item on the agenda are the site tours, which is the next item on our work plan. So why don't we start there? The tour of the utility facilities is scheduled for July 12. Have we arrived at a morning or evening consensus, or I should say afternoon, excuse me, morning or afternoon consensus for what works best for that?
So we are actually going to offer it both times to board members. Ideally, we would keep it to 3 or so per group, just to avoid a quorum, if at all possible. If not, we'll post it accordingly. But so we're going to offer the tours during both sites. So if you want to just shoot me an email afterwards and tell me which time slot works best for you, then we will make sure that our team is coordinated, and we'll start working on the details for the morning or the afternoon shift.
Perfect. I appreciate that. I will say I did that when I first came on the board. Now, whether that was 9 or 10 years ago, I can't remember. As Steve and I were talking about, we did it together, and it was really a very useful introduction to how the utility operates in fact. So I really would encourage my fellow board members, if you haven't done it, it is worth doing, and even if you have done it, it's still worth a refresher. If for nothing else, I know over the years we've replaced some of the things that Steve and I saw 10 years ago. So it's always a time well spent. So the other items on our work plan. So we'll have our regularly scheduled meeting at 5 on that day. the CIP preview is important, Meredith. It's probably the thing that feeds into some of the budget issues the most heavily. So it's very critical. Meredith, you still have your hand raised. Was that from before, or do you have a question? Great. No worries. So anything else we should be thinking about on the work plan, Ross?
So Chair O'Connell, yeah, so the CIP preview will be a good discussion. It'll lead into the fall rate discussions, as you mentioned. We will probably try and coordinate some of our utility tours around potentially some of those upcoming CIP projects, just to provide a little additional context to the group as well. And then also on July 12th, you'll see that we have our water system plan update listed. We update our water system plan every 6 years, and it's currently underway now. So that'll be a touch with the utility board, and that'll come back later this year for recommended approval to the council, as we have to get it done this year as well. So that's what's in store for July. August, we have scheduled recess for all boards and commissions and council. So enjoy the month of August off. And then we will dive right into rates as we start talking budget in the fall. So we have stormwater EMS lined up for the September conversation, and then water and sewer in October is the plan. So it will be a busy fall. Those tend to be, as you know, those tend to be a little bit more lengthy conversations. We will have some project updates that will obviously impact the overall CIP as well. We have some pretty big projects that are currently underway now that we've updated the board with. Obviously, the skater project, as this board knows, is underway. On the water side, the sewer side is going to be out for a construction bid this fall. But I will just, as I've sort of previewed before, we are definitely running into some COVID delays for materials, supplies of materials. And so how does that impact the overall capital picture? That's what we're working through right now in our budget development stuff. So more to come on that, but it will be a good discussion in the fall.
Good. And Meredith, just kind of FYI, for your planning purposes, both the September and October meetings tend to be our longest meetings of the year, because we have the 4 utilities broken up budget discussion wise, but still there's a lot to go over.
Yeah, unfortunately in September, I'm going to be out of the country. And stuff. So leaving that day, unfortunately. So
you'll miss
I'm
exciting.
sorry.
Well, frankly, of the two, that's the easier one. EMS, our emergency medical response is pretty straightforward. Stormwater sometimes has some real big discussions to it, but the October meeting is water and sewer are the rate drivers. So
Yeah. May I ask a question? There's an acronym everyone's been using, CIP.
Construction in progress.
Capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Tim's right too, I guess. So.
It means different things at different times in different settings. That's what it means.
All right, thank you.
Construction in progress is the rate term that Lisa and I are used to. So, I think a very good plan for our upcoming activity. I look forward to seeing everybody, or at least 2 of you at a given time for the tours on the 12th. I'm looking forward to it. I've already been telling people, no, I'm not available on July 12th for this and that and the other thing. That is the last item on our agenda. But before we close, I was going to ask a question for the good of the order. And Director Kittner, if you've got any thoughts on this. Update about the construction on the north end near the park and ride. I mean, how's that project proceeding? Is it close to on time?
So I'm assuming you're referring to the King County North Interceptor project. That
I am.
Is
which
ramping
has
up.
Got I can never remember which street that is, which has got that street down to 1 lane for.
Yeah, North Mercer Way. They are starting the work. So for the board, just a reminder, this is the King County Sewer project. This is, Mercer Island's all of our sewer runs down to the lake, and then it feeds into the lakeland and ultimately feeds into the King County system. This is one of the major transport lines that's being replaced from Mercer Island that goes over into Bellevue and off to this Vaylocan treatment facility that is being replaced. And so their work is getting started now. They have their contractor on board. Obviously, they're mobilizing. This is a 3 to 4 year project. So this is a long endeavor. So this is just the beginning of it. We are meeting with them on a routine basis. There's definitely some concerns that we're hearing from the community over trees. And so we're working with the county in terms of how to message that and making sure that questions are answered and responses are given. So definitely a big impact to the community. It's an important project, though. We do not have a treatment facility on the island, nor do we want one, to be perfectly honest. But that said, it's a big project. It's a big pipe that's going through significant impacts. So we will continue to keep the board and the community apprised of the work. We did ask the county if they could come to the June 21st council meeting and provide an update. Unfortunately, their staff are tied up, but we're working on some sort of walk and talk meetings with some council members and potentially some board members as well to get out there and find out more from the county staff in terms of the overall project. So that's just getting started. We'll keep everyone updated with the information, but it's, they're definitely starting. You can see where they're starting because their presence is known. So
absolutely. Great. Thank you. We'll look forward to being updated.
And Jason, if you've ever a chance to go down there and do a personal, basically walk and talk of that area, I'd love to see that as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, I have another question, Jason, and if you don't have the answer off the top of your head, maybe you can forward it to the clerk or whoever might, since part traditionally of what I've done as chair is to update the council on what our recommendations are when the council is considering the rate increases, which is traditionally sometime in November. I'd love to get that on my calendar sooner rather than later.
We can do that. I would plan on the second meeting so the third Tuesday in November, and I'll send you the date. I would plan on that for now. That's usually when the recommendation goes to the council, but I will confirm with our budget schedule and make sure you get time reserved.
I'd appreciate that. If I can get it on my calendar, that way I can schedule around it.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Any other business for the good of the order? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I heard a second.
Seconded.
Milton. All in favor, please say aye.
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 There you go. I succeed as your chairman. We're done in less than an hour.
Efficient. Efficient.
One of the reasons I love this board, Tim.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
All right,
you.
all right, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening. We'll see you in July.
Good night.
All right. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Nice to meet you.